Welcome. Welcome. Come seeker, come traveler, come all humankind, online or in person, whomever you love.
Come. Come and be welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Cheyenne. For here, we are building a community of refuge where all have equal worth and are invited into spiritual exploration as a foundation for hope, compassionate service, and action.
This is a place where questions are encouraged, a place with room for all of who you are.
This is a place full of works in progress, a place for being human together.
Welcome. It's good to be here.
Settle in and exhale, for this is a time for community.
Now we have Michaela to give us all our things we're going to do.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Michaela Saxon, a member of the board, here to welcome you to this church where we are on a shared journey to find meaning, connection, and community together. If you are new to us, please fill out a welcome card and drop it in the offering basket so we can share information about our activities and help find what nourishes your spirit here. There are note cards in your pews for writing your joys and sorrows for the pastoral prayer. We pass a square basket during the offering to collect these. Write your name, or you can choose to remain anonymous. You can write "Do Not Share" on the card if there's something you want held in care by our minister and pastoral care team, but not spoken aloud. Many activities and events happen each week in this community. So here are a few that are happening soon. Highlighted in your order of service, we have the Martin Luther King Day Parade, which is tomorrow at 11:45. And then later today at 4 at the Second Baptist Church, they're exploring Dr. King's life and legacy with Second Baptist Church of Cheyenne. And then make sure you check Realm or online for more information about activities happening in our community each week. Thank you.
So, as we gather in person and on Zoom each week, we also give from our resources to sustain the work of this church and share our abundance, you can have a seat, with community organizations broadening the reach of our values. You can find the text to give number in your order of service or use your Realm app for electronic giving. Your Share the Plate offerings and pledges may also be dropped in the baskets in a few moments as they pass. In January, every year, we give to the Minister's Discretionary Fund. It's a beneficent fund, or a fund for the benefit of the community. And I'm the person who tells you about that work, because that work is the work of bridging the gaps, of bringing community together. It's what allows us as a congregation to do all those little things that uphold one another's worth and dignity, that let somebody who's just a little short on rent make it until next month, that help a trans person with the fees for a name change application, or help someone who is looking for a job keep their cell phone on so that they can get replies. It's also the fund that lets someone who has just been in the hospital or had a baby have a meal or two without having to think about what to do or where it comes from. The Minister's Beneficent Fund is for all those little things that aren't big enough to need official services. They're not the kinds of chronic needs that send you to a homeless shelter or to Family Promise, Comea, the food bank for long periods of time. They're the little bits, the things that we can just help each other out with in order to make all of our lives a little more loving and caring, a little easier. And now we'll take a moment to pass those baskets. We'll also pass our basket for joys and concerns, if you have any of those. And Lloyd is running just a couple of minutes late, so if Josh is able, we may have some music through our speakers, and if not, we'll sit in meditative silence and enjoy one another's company while the baskets pass. Or we'll go, Lloyd, run on up here. We're just about to pass the baskets. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you. And so it is with deep gratitude that we receive this morning's offering for the work of this community within and beyond our walls, for all that may be done in love. Let us wake up. Not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion or the wish for a few more drowsy minutes in bed. Let us wake up to this world we live in, to its beauty and wonder and also its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality, that not all in our world have what we do, however much or little that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in a great web of mutuality, of which all of us are a part. We must stay woke, stay awake, in the words of our friends and colleagues involved in Black Lives Matter and protests from that day to this, working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up. Let us stay awake. Let us stay woke. And in this time and place, let us waken and worship together. Our opening hymn is our hymn of the month for January, for our theme. I invite you to open your teal hymnals and rise in body or in spirit to join us in singing number 1040, Hush. And thank you to our hymn leaders as well.
Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do? Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like freedom. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Justice.
Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Sounds like justice. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall
Sounds
I
like
do?
love. Sounds like love.
Somebody's calling my name.
Nope, it's not in there.
Sounds like love. Somebody's calling my name. And it sounds like love. Somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall
Let's do
I
hush
do?
one more time. Because we'll hush.
Hush, somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. And we'll hush, hush, somebody's calling my name. Oh my Lord, what shall I do? What shall I do?
Now we start our chalice lighting. In the face of hate, we answer the call of love. In the face of exclusion, we answer the call of inclusion. In the face of homophobia, I don't know if I got that right, we answer the call of LGBTQ rights. In the face of racism, we answer the call of justice for all races. In the face of inexposia, we call of pluralism. In the face of misogyny, we call of women's rights. In the face of democracy, we call the answer of reason. In the face of religious intolerance, we call of diversity. In the face of bigotry, we call of open-mindedness. In the face of despair, we call of hope. As Unitarian Universalists, we answer the call of love now more than ever.
As Unitarian Universalists, we answer this call of love now more than ever. And in the spirit of that call, let us join together in our prayers, our meditations. For today, spirit of life and of love, as we gather with one another, may we be a source of support, for these are turbulent times. May we be an amplification of joy and celebration, for these times need our joy and our blessings as well. Let us dwell together, knowing the wonder and mystery of this magnificent, ever-changing life. And so today, let us share prayers for Leah, Astrid, Freya, and Alana, and offer our hopes for love and peace for their family. Let us offer our joy, our blessings to Lori and Trianne, to Dave and Kaz, who served 77 people at Komea Shelter last night, sharing in a dinner that offers action through love. And let us hold in our hearts deep prayers and blessings for the 3 Oglala Lakota tribal members who are being currently held in immigration detention in Noam's Gulag. They are currently being held on the same site as Lincoln's massacre of Native Americans so many years ago, in an additional hardship for that community and ours, for we are linked together. May we hold in our hearts all love and our hopes for justice that begets peace in Minneapolis and in all places where threats to our neighbors are creating community response. May we first uphold justice, for justice allows peace and not the other way around. And so in this time, as we uplift our prayers, we have added a piece to our chalice table. For our prayers reach out. And our prayers should be shared each week, whether spoken or unspoken. Prayers for all individuals in our community who may be in need. For our community as a whole. May Cheyenne, may Wyoming, may this congregation be visited by love and justice in these days. Apparently, we're extra hard to get lit. There we are. And for this world, may our prayers reach out. May we remember that all things are interdependent. Y'all, this community Takes us a minute, but once we get going, we burn bright. There we are. And may we ever remember that we all have joys and sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, and that we all are held in love, even the earth itself, as the cold and the wind bring us change, bring us wondering about what is yet to come. So may we find in this space peace and comfort and community which enfolds us. Amen, and blessed be. And so we come to that time when the young or the young at heart may wish to join me on the chancel, and we invite you to share in the leadership of speaking our covenant in unison before our time for all ages. The words to our covenant can be found on the inside cover of your order of worship. So we begin. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its cause. This is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth, and to help others. So, some of you might already be aware, but this Monday is a holiday. Is anybody off of school because of a holiday?
No, I have to do track.
Oh, you still got track. All right. What holiday is it?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Oh my goodness, we are on it. So, Martin Luther King Jr. Day is a time where we remember the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the values he stood for. A lot like Unitarian Universalists, Dr. King believed in pluralism and in diversity, which is welcoming and loving many people who are all different in many ways. And people who are different from different places or have different experiences can be really valuable in a community. They might have new ways to solve problems. They might have new skills that you could teach and learn. They might have delicious new kinds of food that you could try. Yeah. And more importantly, when you know people from a lot of different places, it helps us all to form a more peaceful world. It's harder to get in fights when we understand and love people from a lot of different places, and can imagine that the people who would be impacted by using a war instead of talking out our problems are family and friends of people we know. It makes it easier to try and work for other more peaceful solutions. So this year, we're marching, we're protesting, because there are certain kinds of injustice that Martin Luther King was working to end that are still happening, or happening again. Here in Cheyenne today at 4 p.m., there will be a worship service at the Second Baptist Church to remind us about Dr. King's life and the work he did. Tomorrow, there'll be another event at about 12:45, starting at the depot. And I think we're going to stay at the depot because it's very cold to walk all the way up to the Capitol tomorrow. If it's suddenly nice out, maybe that'll change. But yeah, Addie says, I don't think that's going to happen. It might still just be cold. That is, yeah. And then next week, there's more happening that's a little further away. Clergy people, which is to say ministers like myself, and rabbis and priests and imams and leaders of lots of kinds of religious groups, are going to be going to Minneapolis for a couple of days. In Minneapolis, they are having a big problem. There's a lot of ICE agents trying to arrest immigrants and people who are brown or black and put them in prison or force them to leave the country simply because they're people who came from somewhere else. It's the same kind of injustice, this disliking people based on the color of their skin or where they are from, that Dr. King was fighting against. And so, next week, I'm going to be going to Minneapolis for a couple of days, along with a lot of other clergy people. Oh my goodness, that was a big role. Are you doing okay? That's sometimes scary, even if you don't get hurt when you fall over. And many years ago, when Dr. Martin Luther King was having a big march like this, the Reverend James Reeb, a Unitarian pastor from Casper, Wyoming, went to support that march in Selma, Alabama. So this week, as I'm going, I would love to take with me some of your blessings and good wishes. And that's where this box comes in. This is called a wonder box. Can you guess why? Yeah, because we wonder what's inside this box. Well, so inside of this box, I have a whole bunch of pieces of ribbon and a bunch of fabric markers and permanent markers. And I would love for all of you who would like to take a ribbon and write a word of hope or justice or blessing, something you would like to take along to Minneapolis with me, to remind myself that it's not just me in Minneapolis, it's a whole congregation of people. And so, anytime during the worship service, you can go ahead and do that writing. We're going to go ahead and pass this box around right now, and everybody up here who wants to can take a ribbon. Everybody out there can take a ribbon as it comes down the aisle. Maybe Jed and Miss Heather might help with that after these folks have gotten that. And I'm going to pin all of those ribbons onto my stole so that all of you will be there with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's fidget spinners.
That's very cool. So as that passes, we are going to go back to a meditative song that we've sung before. The words are, "Make us aware we are a sanctuary, made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we'll be a living sanctuary anew." And those words should be in your order of service, so you can look along. We'll just sing through a few times to give people a chance to do that little blessing writing as you are ready. So, make us our sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving, we'll be a living sanctuary anew. Make us aware we are a sanctuary,
sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving will be a living sanctuary anew. Make us aware we are a sanctuary, each made holy and loved right through. With thanksgiving will be a living sanctuary anew. So if you're still writing, feel welcome to continue that work as we hear our sacred message.
The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 13 through 16. When they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child and kill him." So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where 15 stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled the prophecy of the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I call my son." When Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all boys in Bethlehem and in its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. 36, I need to clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger, invite you in, needing clothes, and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to you?" Spirit of life. No.
And the king will reply.
The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, for you are cursed, in the eternal fire preparation for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger and needing of clothes, or sick in the prison, and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I trust you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Thank you, Lloyd. This is Don't Sleep Through the Revolution by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I'm sure each of you has read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving entitled Rip Van Winkle. One thing that we usually remember about the story of Rip Van Winkle is that he slept 20 years. But there's another point to this story in which always completely is overlooked. It is the sign on the inn of the little town in Hudson from which Rip Van Winkle went up into the mountains for his long sleep. He went up, and the sign had a picture of King George of England. When he came down, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. When Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was. This incident reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that he slept 20 years, but he slept through a revolution. While he was peacefully snoring up in the mountains, a revolution was taking place in the world that would alter the face of human history. Yet Rip Van Winkle knew nothing about it. He was asleep. One of the great misfortunes, and yet failed to in history, is that too many individuals find themselves in the great period of change, nothing more tragic than to sleep through a revolution. And there could no be gainsaying of the fact of colonialism. We see it in our own nation, in the struggle against racial segregation and discrimination. As we notice this struggle, we are aware of the fact that a social revolution is taking place in our midst. Victor Hugo once said that there is nothing more powerful in all the world when a time has come and the idea has come today, and the idea of freedom and human dignity. So all over the world, we will see something of freedom explosion, and this reveals to us that we are in the midst of revolutionary times. An older order is passing, and a new order is coming into being. The great question is, what do we do when we find ourselves in such a period? Certainly the church has a great responsibility because the church is true to its nature. It stands on moral guardian of the community and of this society. It has always been the role of this church to broaden horizons, to challenge the status quo, and to question and break mores if necessary. I'm sure we all agree that the church has a major role to play in this period of social change.
And so, Dr. King went on to list several of the church's responsibilities for remaining awake, or in this modern world, we might say, for getting woke and staying that way. He said it's the responsibility of the church, and that we are challenged to instill within the people of our congregation a world perspective. That, as John Donne wrote, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. He goes on to say, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. Therefore send not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. For Unitarian Universalists, this is what we mean when we say we are centered in love, that we are building a community of refuge, not a refuge from the world to keep us from having to interact with it, but a refuge for people who need a space to shelter in so that they can go out into the world with greater courage and greater love. We are naming our deep connections to one another and to the rest of humanity, to the world in which we live. We know that what happens to us is part of a much larger interdependent web, that when we see injustice, we must respond with empathy and care. We know that we must reach out, that it is our call to feed the hungry, to shelter the homeless, to attend the sick and the poor, to reunite families and give safe passage to the traveler. For all of us are part of a greater whole, bound by love and made holy when we honor that love in our actions. It is not incidental that in the Bible, in this week of the lectionary, that Jesus was banished to Egypt, made an immigrant, an unhoused person, a traveler, someone in need, because we know that when we show up for love, when we show up for divinity, whatever you name that, when we show up for the holy, when we show up for God, that we are doing our part in the world, in our interdependence. And so Dr. King continued. He said, it is necessary for the church to reaffirm over and over the essential immorality of racial segregation. He brings forth this reminder from several traditions, saying, segregation is evil, to use the thinking of the Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, because it substitutes an I-it relationship for an I-thou relationship. What he means is, when we are turning people into things, objects, we are doing wrong. We are creating immorality in the world. Thomas Aquinas, he continues, says segregation is wrong because it is based on human laws which are out of harmony with the moral, the natural, the eternal laws of the universe. We are all made up of star stuff. From the very atoms that compose the molecules, that compose the bitty cells that compose you as an organism, we are interdependent and linked. We interchange those atoms and molecules thousands and millions at a time throughout our entire lives. We are not separate. And segregation, deportation, all these ways in which we separate ourselves as differently human from one another are against the natural law. Paul Tillich, a great Protestant theologian, said that sin is separation. What is segregation? Says King. Then but an affirmation of man's tragic estrangement, his terrible separation, and his awful sinfulness. King went on to emphasize that the idea of superior and inferior races was fundamentally immoral as a stance. He said, today's arguments are generally placed on more subtle cultural grounds. For instance, the Negro is not culturally ready for integration. If you integrate the schools and other areas of life, you will pull the race back a generation. And another, the Negro is a criminal. You see, he has the highest crime rate in any city. And so the arguments go on ad infinitum, said King. I want to take a moment to note here that these are the same arguments we are hearing today about the actions of ICE, the need for immigration and customs enforcement, for deportations and roundups happening across our nation. Not about African Americans necessarily, but when you look at our news stories, the supposed fraud by Somali immigrants in Minneapolis, the allegations of gang violence and links to gang affiliation for those deported to El Salvador, the allegations here in Wyoming that those pulled over driving tractor trailers are a danger to our roads and our drivers because of their English comprehension or their violations of truck safety, just like Dr. King spoke of in 1966 at the Ware lecture that I am quoting from. These allegations, some are simply untrue on the face of it. The ones that are true-ish, like the safety violations in trucking, are often because of the injustices perpetrated upon these folks, the exploitation of a vulnerable population, people whose visas and status could be endangered by losing a job, being pressured into driving a truck whose lights are out or whose brakes should have been worked on weeks or months earlier because they can't afford to say no. This is not the criminality of the immigrant, but the criminality, if by anyone, of those more wealthy and powerful, enacted upon an immigrant who is then blamed for the violation. And so we come to the crux of Dr. King's message, which you may have heard before. He says, the next thing that the church must do to remain awake through this revolution is to move out into the arena of social action. It is not enough for the church to work in the ideological realm and to clear up misguided ideas. To remain awake through this social revolution, the church must engage in strong action programs to get rid of the last vestiges of segregation and discrimination. It is necessary to get rid of one or two myths if we're really going to engage in this kind of action program, he says. One is the notion that legislation is not effective in bringing about the changes that we need in human relations. This argument says that you've got to change the heart in order to solve the problem. And you can't change the heart through legislation. They would say you've got to do that through religion and education. Well, there's some truth in this. Before we can solve those problems, men and women, and I would say non-binary folks as well, must rise to the majestic heights of being obedient to the unenforceable. I would be the first to say this. If we are to have a truly integrated society, white persons and Negro persons and members of all groups must live together not merely because the law says it, but because it's natural and because it's right. But that does not make legislation less important. It may be true that you can't legislate integration, but you can legislate desegregation. It may be true that morality cannot be legislated, but behavior can be regulated. It may be true that the law cannot change the heart, but it can restrain the heartless. The law cannot make a man love me, but it can restrain him from lynching me, and I think that's pretty important also. And so, Dr. King continued, and he asked in that moment, he asked in the memory and spirit of Viola Liuzzo, that Unitarian Universalist mother from Detroit who took her car down to Montgomery, Alabama to pick up marchers and get them safely back to Selma and was killed by doing so. He asked in the memory and spirit of the Reverend James Reeb from here in Wyoming, who so believed in the ideals of the equality state that he picked up and went to Selma along with a solid 10%, 1 in every 10 Unitarian clergy people in the entire nation. And he put his belief in justice and equality into his voice and his feet and his heart in every way possible. Dr. King asked of us all, Unitarians and Universalists, that we turn love into action. And we are continuing this powerful work here in this congregation. We are continuing it through our FIRE group, our Friends of Immigrants Responding Ethically, making red cards, moving funds, sending groceries and children's clothing to address the needs of those most impacted by what ICE is doing here in this state. We can continue that work by showing up with me in faith in Minneapolis with those ribbons, well wishes, and prayers. I think Jed's got some of those ready to come on up here. We can extend that work by showing up through donations to the discretionary fund for all people, thank you, who need our help in these times of trouble and uncertainty, by showing up to the Capitol building, not only for this Monday's rally, and that'll be down at the depot, in fact, but also on February 12th for the opening of the legislature's budget session with clergy in the rotunda at 1:45 p.m., showing up on February 13th with Wyoming Equality for a day of love and action, not necessarily to argue with those with whom you most disagree, but also, and most importantly, to say thank you to those holding the line, to make love and equality still a core part of how we show up in Wyoming. And then we're going to keep on showing up with whatever comes next, because that's what Unitarian Universalists do. We turn love into action again and again. Dr. King preached, "We will meet your physical force with our soul force." He said, "Do to us what you will, and we will still love you. We cannot in all good conscience obey your unjust laws, because non-cooperation with evil is as much a moral obligation as is cooperation with good. Throw us in jail, and we will still love you. Threaten our children, bomb our homes, send your hooded perpetrators of violence into our communities. In the midnight hours, drag us out on some wayside road and beat us and leave us half dead. And as difficult as it is, we will still love you. Send your propaganda agents around the nation and make it appear we are not fit morally or culturally or otherwise for integration, and we will still love you. But be assured that we will wear you down by our capacity to suffer. And one day we will win our freedom. And we will not only win freedom for ourselves, we will so appeal to your heart and your conscience, and we will win you in the process. And our victory will be a double victory. Not too different from today. So whatever they say about Renee Good deserving her death because she supposedly tried to hit an officer, whatever they say about children being tear gassed until a baby stopped breathing, being in the wrong place and it somehow being their parents' fault and not that of the officers who threw explosives and chemical weapons into a car with children, whatever you hear on the news about the allegations the UU clergy and laity are linked to Antifa or otherwise immoral, make no mistake, they will not stop trying to convince those around us of our complicity and fault in creating the violence and suppression visited upon us simply because the majority of UUs are white. In spite of all of this, we are going to win this fight because love is powerful, because we are mighty, because we are a tidal wave of calm, centered people ready to respond in love, even through our rage. And this tide is rising. This wave of justice is going to roll down in vast streams and wash our streets clear, melt the ice that's been clogging the streets in Minneapolis. We hope this tide will cleanse their hearts as well. We pray for their hearts to be open, for their ears to be able to hear the cries of justice. May their hearts be turned, but make no mistake, this tide is rising, and so are we. For we cannot be silent or still when our common humanity is at stake. Make no mistake, love will always win. And so I invite you to continue in love, to look in your order of service where we will be singing "The Tide is Rising." It's by the Rabbi Shoshana Myra Friedman and Yotam Schachter. And this song has just a few lines. We haven't sung it here before, but I believe in you. The tide is rising, and so are we. We repeat that 3 times. This is where we are called to be. And each verse will change up that first line, but this is where we are called to be is always the same. So I'll sing through once, and then you all can sing with me.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. Ready? The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The task is mighty, the task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, the land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This land is holy, so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The storm is raging, the storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The sun is shining, the sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. We are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The world is ready. The world is ready, and so are we. This world is ready, and so are we. This world is ready, and so are we. For this is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The tide is rising, the tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Please remain standing as we extinguish the chalice flame and speak together the words of our order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry within our hearts until we are together again.
From that day till this, may we be called May we be quiet enough to hear the call of justice whenever it may rise. And then, may we be loud enough. May we be strong enough. May we be mighty enough to make justice a part of that love as we bring it into the world, alive and real from within us. Blessed be.